PS5 Pro Eve is among us, and I know people are getting ready to play their games in higher fidelity, and even put some custom faceplates on the PS5 Pro to change up the looks. Oh, wait a minute. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. Just like the PS5 Pro is back in the news, a console that I kind of forgot was coming out in a few days, but this time it isn't about the price. The story this time is about some of the accessories. So one of the cool things about the PS5 is that you can get custom faceplates for it. This was the case for the original PS5 and then the updated Slim model with the split plate design. Now most people probably assume that since the PS5 Pro was keeping that split plate design that was introduced with the Slim model, that they would also be able to use the same faceplates. Well, Sony has confirmed that the existing PS5 faceplates are not compatible with the PS5 Pro. Now Sony did say they would have faceplates specifically for the Pro in the future, but if someone's upgrading from an existing PS5, that means that they'll have to rebuy the custom plates once Sony releases them specifically for the Pro. Now in my opinion, it's probably not that big of a deal because there's probably not that many people who are buying the PS5 Pro as an upgrade that currently have the Slim, because that just came out like last year. And also the console is already $700 without the disc drive, so I feel like people who are dropping that much money on the PS5 Pro probably aren't going to care that much about having to spend an extra $50 for the faceplates when they release. But while the PS5 faceplates are ditching the PS5 Pro, it looks like Apex Legends is ditching the Steam Deck and Linux in general. So Apex Legends was one of the few Battle Royale games that actually supported Linux, and as a result, the Steam Deck, but they have now made a decision to pull the plug on their Linux support, and the reason that they've cited is anti-cheat. EA and Respawn put out a statement basically saying that cheats on Linux are too hard to detect since users have so much access and control over the kernel, and basically that supporting Linux opens a loophole that could be exploited to cheat in the game. The Verge article also notes that their current anti-cheat runs on Linux, but I guess they feel like too many people are somehow getting past it and still finding ways to cheat. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they were one of the few Battle Royale games that even ran on Linux, and most of them don't support Linux specifically because of the anti-cheat software. The other thing that was mentioned was the player base on Linux. It was so small that I guess to them it wasn't worth the potential risk of cheating for a small number of players. So basically, to break it down, from the sound of it, it's just not worth their time in fixing the issue because the user base on Linux is small anyway, so they're just going to back away from it in general. The Steam Deck has really done a lot for gaming on Linux, but one of the big issues is still its small install base in comparison to how many people have Windows. And a lot of the time, developers just don't want to dedicate resources to deal with issues like anti-cheat or making sure their games run on Linux in general. Either way, I hope gaming on Linux continues to grow and that developers take the time to actually support Linux properly. And speaking of dropping support, it's that time of week to talk about layoffs again, unfortunately, and this time it's from Sony. So we previously talked about Sony shutting down Concord 2 weeks after its release, and then there was a change at Firewalk Studios, the developer of the game, as the director of Concord stepped down and moved back to a support role. At that time, the game was shut down and they said that they were deciding on what the future of the game would be and that it could possibly come back. I mentioned at the time I didn't see that happening because of how fast they shut it down. I just felt like if they tried to bring a game back under that same name, they kind of ruined the reputation of the game already by shutting it down so fast. Well, Sony has made their official decision and they have decided that they are not bringing back Concord, and they're also closing down Firewalk Studios. So Sony has confirmed that they're closing Firewalk Studios. They mentioned in their statement that some aspects of Concord were great, but parts of it missed the mark, which is basically the same thing that Firewalk put out when they shut down the game. But to sum it up, after the game's performance, they decided to just shut it down and shut down Firewalk. They also decided to shut down another studio, Neon Koi, who was developing some kind of action mobile game. They also confirmed that the unannounced mobile game they were working on was canceled, and they're basically going to continue to focus on single-player experiences for now. I was hoping that Firewalk would at least get a chance to do something else, but it looks like that's not going to happen. As far as Neon Koi, it looks like they just tried to sneak that in there because they knew everyone would be focused on Firewalk closing. But yeah, as usual, this isn't outside of the norm, as other companies have started doing layoffs again recently, and the failure of Concord probably made it an easy target for Sony to cut. Sony didn't mention if they were doing any kind of severance packages or what kind of support they were offering to the employees that were affected, but I hope they're able to find work quickly. Alright, so as tradition has called for over the last few weeks, when we have bad news, we gotta bounce back by talking about Nintendo for some reason. But this time it's about Alarmo, so let's go ahead and talk about it in our final story. So if you're not familiar, Nintendo recently released an alarm clock called Alarmo. Also, if you're not aware, Nintendo has a history of their hardware somehow getting exploited and being used to run custom firmware. When we combine these two things, we get Alarmo getting hacked to show cat pictures. So user Gary Odernix was able to decrypt the firmware on Alarmo and figure out how to send files to it. In the short video he posted, he basically just sent a picture of a cat to the display of the Alarmo. It's also noted in the GameSpot article that he had done previous hacks on the Wii U by reverse engineering it. Now obviously with an alarm clock, there's not really much to gain by hacking it other than possibly displaying your own pictures. So it's not like this is a huge blow to Nintendo, but if something happens like this with the Switch 2, like it did with the current Switch, they could be in major trouble. But let me know what you think about this week's stories down in the comments. What kind of cat pictures would you put on a hacked Nintendo Alarmo alarm clock? Wait, what am I asking? I don't know, I'm peacing out. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing wherever it is to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And I always do at least 2 things at the same time. Peace.